criteria to look at that. And I wanted to thank her for her suggestion.
Any other questions or
I
comments?
didn't get a chance to comment.
I've already done that, so I'll get you next.
But I thought we were all supposed to answer my question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. Excuse me, yes, go ahead.
I'd just like to comment on a couple of things that were said. I met with the attorney. There is no requirement to put this hardship into the policy. He told me that, or he answered Mr. Dubus's question, that he did not recommend that hardship be added to JCB. When I asked him about potential lawsuits, which was mentioned in the paper by the chair, alluded to, he mentioned that Manchester cannot sue us because we were bound under arbitration, and if there was a problem, it would go to Concord. The only possible lawsuit that he mentioned to me would be a parent suing to get the money that they contributed to their child's education. After we had a discussion about that, it seemed that that likelihood of that parent being successful with that lawsuit would be very low. I think a lot of stuff has been thrown out here. What we have not understood is why this policy needed to be put in effect. We've heard the numbers were going up. Our contract is not limited by numbers. We've heard possible contract breach. We've seen nothing from Manchester to say anything about that. If this is going to be the policy of this board, I think we deserve to tell you straightforward why we want this restrictive policy. And the biggest problem that I see here is we are not perfect. This board will make mistakes. But while we are making mistakes, which were clearly pointed out by the hearing officer, our children are suffering. They're in the turmoil right now of not knowing what school they're going to go to. I would suggest we let this class go and we continue this discussion and get it straightened out before the next class comes up, one way or the other. But it's not fair for these parents and these children to be caught in the middle of this, particularly as it drags on. Thank you.
All right, yes, sir.
My name is Michael Baker. It's my understanding that there's been a precedence of parents petitioning the school board and the school board in years past allowing children to go to other high schools. And Mr. Argo mentioned that the school board changed the policy in advice of counsel. So I would please ask, what changed? Why did you advise the school board to change their policy to limit access to high schools for children or schools in general?
The agreement with Manchester lives. The board has an obligation under its agreement with Manchester to send all of its students to Manchester. Approval on a case-by-case basis implies something other than anybody who asks gets to go wherever they want. That's why.
What about the precedent? You set a precedent.
That's why I advised the change in policy.
Mr. Graham, you referenced that you represent many different school districts. Do you also represent Manchester?
I do not.
Does your firm?
No.
Yes, 1, 2.
Louise Clark. I have a question to the school board. I applied at Pembroke for my daughter a couple weeks ago. I got an email back from Mr. Briganti, I think is his name, and he told me I went by JCB policy because I was handed the copy of it, and he came back to me and told me I have to get approved by the school board before I can go back to apply. He doesn't. So where does that leave me? Do I need to send you an email? Or who do I address this to, and what would be my next step?
So if I understand your question correctly, the procedure before was to be sure that the receiving district would accept your student.
According to the new policy.
Right, and now there's some confusion about that. So,
yes.
So I would just make a note of that. I'm not sure where you can address that tonight. If you can, please do.
Yeah, I believe
you should be, and I say believe, I think some of the letters have come in, the requests have come in addressed to the school board. Some have come in addressed to the superintendent, but either way, they should go to the SAU office, and that's 15 Farmer Road? Okay, well, I was close.
Well, I was just going by what the policy said, to get approved by the school that I wanted my daughter to go to. But they sent back to me saying that I need to be approved by you.
Right, I'm sorry, the request would go into the SAU office. Again, you know, you can address it to the Hooksett School Board, and it will be put on the agenda, and you'll be notified of it being on an agenda,
Okay.
and that your request can be discussed with us either in public or non-public session.
All right, so I did the right thing, because they told me not to go any further with it until I got your approval. I'm trying to do the right thing by going by that policy.
It does have to come to the board, yes.
I think what we have here is a paradox, because for this board to look at that request, we need to see an acceptance by the other school, and now the other school is saying they don't want to accept because, I would assume, because they've heard of what's going on in Hooksett. So it leaves the parent in a paradox, because I don't see how we can look at that request. It wouldn't fill our policy because there would be no acceptance letter from the school. I think that's the point she's trying to make.
Yes, I believe that's the point she's trying to make also. Yep.
Yes, that says required written authorization to attend designated school from that school district superintendent.
So there's some room for further clarification and implementation of the policy. Okay, yes.
Well, I was going to say, based on that, it appears that, yeah, we need to look at that, because currently it states that we need to have the acceptance from the other school. So I guess I will say that we're going to investigate that. I apologize for not understanding the question.
So I think potentially the school board would not want to be put in the position of approving potentially a student to go elsewhere if they haven't been approved at that elsewhere. So I think the issue is that they still need to go to the receiving school district, ask for permission to attend, and then come back to get approval from the board. Okay, so if they won't talk to you, then that's an issue of the school district administration clarifying with that school district administration what the intent is. And I see some heads nodding, so I think that's in agreement. So any policy has the wording of the policy, and then you have the implementation of the policy. The policy rests with the school board, the implementation and the carrying out and the communication around that policy rests with the administration. So I think that there's room for improvement in terms of communication and clarification of what the policy is on, potentially a couple of those. Yes.
I would like to comment from my position. This is another example where we are lacking in serving the public. And the parents and the students are the ones that are suffering. And I think it's time that we revise this policy, as I said before, turn back the clock, let this class go through, and start having an adult discussion about this in public and settle it, and not use our kids as experiments on how this policy is going to react with other schools and within our own school district. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from the public? Oh yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Doug St. Pierre. I grew up here in Hooksett, west side of the river, east side of the river.
I'm sorry. Can you speak more closely?
Yep, sorry.
There you go.
I grew up with the assignments on which side of the river you lived on and such. My issue now is the fact of we have a contract. What are our level of standards in Manchester as far as educating our children? The graduation rates are falling drastically. Their standards with, I think every district is in that district in need of improvement at this point. I think that falls under part of the requirements of not being able to provide an education for your child. So I think we really need to look at how we're going to force this issue if we're going to send the kids to schools that aren't performing with less students, and now we're going to send more students. And the biggest issue is Manchester's cutting the requirements for GPAs possibly, or credits for graduation. I kind of look at that as we're going on a curve now with a school system that can't keep up with its current needs. So I think that's a really big problem. We should allow our kids to go to schools that are thriving right now, such as Bow or Pembroke or any other school. Just be good for taking an advisor, maybe.
Thank you. Who did I say was 2? Yes.
Tracy Huffey again. Now, you've heard that the policy is flawed from a state hearing officer. You've heard parents that are trying to get into receiving schools, the policy's not permitting that because they need to get that receiving school's approval, but you're not giving the approval. So what are you going to do? I'd like to know how you're going to approve these children. Are you going to use JCB? That's my question to the school board right now.
And the school board will not be able to answer you right now because the policy is that if a question is raised, that they will take it under advisement and meet and come back to you. But, but what you're going to get potentially is 5 different answers and not a decision of the school board as a whole.
Okay. Can I ask a school board member to do something then? Can I ask them? I'd like to ask a school board member to make the motion to rescind JCB and go back to using the prior school board policy of allowing children to go out of district.
We're in an open hearing, right? So we can't do that anyway right now.
Where would I be able to do that?
Essentially, when we close the forum
Okay.
and the business meeting starts again.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I don't think that we posted this as a hearing. We're in a school board meeting right now.
Well, yes, but it's a forum, and I'd like to get everyone's input first.
Understood. I just wanted to clarify. We didn't
Okay.
post this as a hearing, correct?
I'm sure that I used the wrong word. I
Okay.
didn't mean hearing, I meant forum.
Just trying to be clarified.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Kathy O'Hara. As you know, I do have a child that's been denied. But what I really want to come here tonight is talk to the school board that you're here for the best interest of the district, of the children. Our lawyer, your lawyer, has said to you, case by case, it can be done, but we need to send people to Manchester. What I want you to think about is what is the best interest for our people. We're like at a turning point here in Hooksett and in education and a lot of things. And everything that I've heard that these parents have asked for as a hardship, an educational hardship, could actually fall under an educational hardship. Special classes, if you look at Manchester, they're in cooperative programs. If they don't offer it, Attorney Graham can tell you more about this. You can go to other schools, such as Alvin and some other things, to pick up other courses. So even Manchester is acknowledging the fact that if we can't offer your child a class, we can find another high school in the area for them to take that class. Nashua does it. They tuition people out to Albert as well. So I'm wondering if the school board could go back and think of what hardships are. If you're being bullied in one school and they're going to another school, even though it's a different school, it's a high school, you're still on the same bus with the same kids. If you're coming from the same neighborhood, you're also going to be taking classes with those same kids. So is that not an educational hardship? I think that when you're looking at doing 100% tuition, one of the things that they said, it was inherently unfair to someone who may not be able to pay the extra tuition. Well, you're in a position to say, I'm going to let these people go and pay, but if you can't pay, we can use this other policy for those people that can prove that they are in need for tuition reimbursement. So I think that you have a lot of reasons why you can allow this to continue. And all I hear from the older school board members is why they won't do it. I think that in the best interest of the schools, in the best interest of the kids, why would we stop something that was working well? Also, if you look at the people that you turned down, and you look at the people who didn't come in front of you this year, where are they going? You're saying, well, you want to put all that money back to Manchester? Guess what?